Hi, my name is Adrian and I'm with Blitz Kids. Today we're going to be going over exchanges. So the art of exchange is actually a really cool topic because many players don't know about this. Usually whenever I ask a student, well, how come you exchange this? How come you exchange that? They always give me an answer something like this. Oh, well, I was trying to be aggressive, coach. I'm an aggressive player, so I try to win all his pieces, blah, 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 blah. And to be honest, exchanging doesn't have anything to do with being an aggressive player. Being an aggressive player is having the ability to create threats over the board and consistently put pressure on the opponent's position. That's what aggressiveness is. Whenever you exchange, there has to be a particular reason because whenever we exchange, we don't just exchange for, just to go into an end game. That shouldn't be the reason why you're exchanging. So there are a few reasons why we exchange. And today we're going to be looking at the result of gaining a tempo. So yes, sometimes whenever you're like up in material exchange, all exchanges are pretty much good for you because whenever you go down to that end game, you will have a winning end game, but then you have to exchange the right way and know when to exchange and make sure that it's favorable to you and not your opponent. All right, so here we go. So this first example shows us how just by blindly exchanging, or if we're just trading off pieces and we're not paying attention to what our opponent's doing, we can really get into some trouble. So we play pawn to d5 here, and our opponent, let's say we're playing the bad side here. So let's say our opponent plays c4, which is a good move. This is the queen's gambit. And now we play knight f6. Knight f6 results in a tempo loss. Okay, so there is a way to kind of deviate out of it, but if you're just playing along, let's say I play c takes d5 and you play knight takes d5, well now, the reason why I exchange that pawn, the reason why I exchange here is because now whenever the knight recaptures, I'll be able to play e4 and then you lose that tempo. So c takes d5, knight takes d5, pawn to e4, and now the knight must move. If the knight doesn't move out of the way, you lose it. So the knight moves, and now we play knight to c3. And as we can see, we can very easily visualize that the pawns in the center are dominating. So we have two pawns in the center, and the black pieces do not. Okay. And by playing knight to c3, we can already say that white is up 2 tempos. Okay, so tempo is moves in chess. Okay, so just remember tempos as that, right? And it's really that simple. And we can measure these tempos by counting the individual moves to reach the final position on the board, and that will let you know how many tempos you have. So here, if I was playing the white pieces, I have, in order to reach this position right here, I would need 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 tempi, or tempo, I call it tempos, for white, and only 1 tempo for black, because it only takes 1 tempo to get to this position. Notice how I don't count the pawn that's missing here in the exchange that I do with it. I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that. Actually, I exchanged here, or well, white exchanged here. But the reason why I don't do that is because they don't have any influence over the board anymore. So since they don't, then they don't count. They're not participating in the battle. They're outside of the chessboard physically. All right, so yeah, this is just a very simple example of how if you don't know what you're doing and your opponent uses the art of exchange to his advantage or her advantage, then you're in trouble. All right, and we can gain small advantages like this all the time. All right, so let's go back. Your opponent can also play queen takes d5, but this results in the same exact thing. And this is why we don't bring out our queen too early, because now you can attack or develop with a gain of tempo or a gain of a move. All right, and so this is how you know you're going to lose a tempo. If you are forced to move something that you'd rather not move, okay, that's you losing a tempo. So don't do that. So queen a5, and now after bishop to d2, white will gain another tempo, as we can see, by playing a discovery attack on the bishop. So we're developing another piece, and whenever this knight moves out of the way, the queen will have to move an additional time. So we're gaining additional tempos. e4 is also being prepared with bishop to d2. All right, so on the very next move, we can even play pawn to e4. That's fine. All right, so that's rule number one. So you want to exchange and then follow it up with a gain of tempo. That's why we exchange. And so here we're going to have a little tempo challenge. And we're going to see if, oh man, it's actually mid game. All right, so we're going to do this tempo challenge. And we're going to see if you can come up with the right move. So it is white to move in this position. We have 1, 2, 3 tempos. And black has 1, 2, 3 tempos. So how can we, as white, gain a tempo by the opponent? All right, so pause your video and see if you can attack something. All right, the answer here is pawn to d3. Now, under normal circumstances, I don't count pawn moves as development moves, but this does allow the bishop to kind of come out. So this is going to be a gain of tempo, and it's attacking the knight. The knight can't just protect itself. It has to move out of the way. Knight to d4. All right, problem number 2. Can you see the tempo gaining move again for white? So go ahead and pause the video if you haven't done so already. All right, here it's very simple. So we just gained an additional tempo with this, right? Now here we're gonna gain another one with pawn to d4, and the knight has to go back. Otherwise, if he goes, let's say here, knight to e6, this is really silly because now I get d5 in, and I'm attacking both of these. So the tactics are already in my favor. So after knight c5, d4, our opponent plays knight to e4. Tempo challenge again. How can we gain some more tempos on this knight right here? Hint, hint, it's not going to be a pawn move. All right, let's see if you guys got it. It is d5. Psych, I tricked you again. So if you played bishop d3, this is actually not that bad because it does gain tempo, but our opponent can respond with pawn to d5. So that's actually why we play pawn d5 ourselves. And the idea is that we're going to tempo this knight, and this knight is still going to be able to get tempoed with bishop to d3 or like queen to d4, because now the knight has to go back to its original square. So if we just count the tempos here after pawn to d5, we have like some really good stuff. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then here we have 1, 2, 3. So how did that happen? And I'll highlight these in red so you guys can see it a little bit more clearly. So notice how there's only 3 arrows, but I made 5 moves. How did that happen? I gained tempo. I kept attacking my opponent. Now, again, I do want to caution, I do want to warn, the pawns usually don't, they do gain tempos, but it has to be for the right reason. If the knight is over here on the sideline, or let's say on this square, and I play like a4, that is going to gain space, it is going to gain a tempo, but it has to be useful to my overall plan. If it's not helping my overall plan, then why am I playing it for? It's only a 1-move threat, and then my opponent defends the threat, and then what did I accomplish? Here, this is not the case. This is a good exception of moving these pawns, and I'm going to be able to get development from it. My overall plan is, now that I move my d pawn, this bishop can develop and deploy anywhere along this diagonal. Number 2, I gained a lot of space in the center, so I have a lot of control. And number 3, I'm bouncing back those knights and forcing my opponent to come up with good defensive moves, and hopefully I get him off balance of his plan. and this is just a dead loss for black already. So here it was 5-3, and he plays knight b8, and a very poor. A very poor underdeveloping move, but it was necessary. Here, white can follow up with knight b to d2 or bishop to d3, forcing black to exchange the knight that has a lot of tempos invested in it. The exchange of time-devouring knight at e4 for the newborn knight at d2 amounts to a tempo loss for black. For with the vanishing of the e4 knight, there will vanish all the tempi swallowed by it. So basically, what that is saying in the study is that if 1, 2 moves. It took 2 moves for this knight to get here, and I just play something like knight b to d2. Whenever he plays knight takes d2, and let's say I play queen takes d2 or bishop takes d2, they're both good. I'll just play this one. Then what happens is all of those tempos are lost. Now it takes 0. Black literally has 0 moves on the board. He played 0 moves because everything that he did develop is either underdeveloped or exchanged off the board. And remember, anything exchanged off the board does not count. So now we're going to go to the freeing maneuver. The freeing maneuver is fairly simple. The reason why we play this is because sometimes you do get yourself in a bad position. So something like, let's say we're playing the black pieces, knight c6, d4, and let's say we don't know any opening theory, and we actually play pawn to d5. So pawn to d5 is a very bad move because it ignores the threat on the e5 pawn, and it introduces an additional threat, but who has to move first? White. So that means he's going to be the initiator in the attack, and he's going to have first say. So he decides to play e takes d5. And the reason why we exchange there as white, let's see if you guys can figure it out. Go ahead and pause your videos. All right, so the idea is now after queen takes d5, we can play this tempo gaining move, knight to c3. Excellent. If you got this one right, very good. Now, the only way we can do this as black, the only way we can continue to play on is by exchanging or liquidating, that's what they call it, or exchanging everything off. All right, so bishop to b4. We want to develop, pin the knight to the king so we don't have to move out of the way. Again, we don't want to allow our opponent these tempo gain moves. Let's say I play queen to d8. Now, honestly, there's a free pawn. You can even push forward. That would also be really good. And yeah, you're just going to lose material. You can also even play something like bishop to b5. That looks menacing as well. So we don't want to play queen to d8. It's just not going to be good. So we have to play bishop to b4, keep developing those pieces along with our opponent, and don't fall behind in development. So bishop to b4, and now bishop to d2. Now this knight takes d5 is a threat, so we have to exchange here. If we play something like queen a5, d5, knight to d7, or knight to e7, then the knight can just take. So just by losing these tempos, moving the bishop back and forth, we can see that we already lost some material. Bishop to d2, bishop takes is the only move. And notice what I'm doing here. The freeing maneuver is basically exchanging everything off because we know if we don't exchange it off, we're basically losing some material. So instead of trying to hold everything by a little thread, we're just going to let it go by exchanging it all off. And that's what we do. So we release the tension. E takes d5, knight takes d5, and after knight f6, the knight deployment is the exchange, followed by the developing move. Now let's look at this example, but a little bit more in depth with maybe some alternative moves for white. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, and now our bad move, d5. Okay, so you can try and save yourself by liquidating, but if your opponent is a very knowledgeable one, then they can play here bishop to b5. And what this does is basically put a lot of pressure on this e5 square. This d5 square isn't going to be doing much. Instead, we're going to counteract and go on the c6 square and put a lot of pressure there and diverge it. So here we play d takes e4, threatening the knight, but then knight takes e5, And notice how this guy is all up in the territory, so it could easily get picked off. It's a bit extended. And then again, that pressure is here on c6, bishop to d7, bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, and now castle is one way. It says here the time race is equal, however black still isn't fully developed, so the player shouldn't get too comfortable. Notice how the two kingside pieces are far away from making black castle, and white is already castled. So this is really good. Bishop d6, just trying to develop as quickly as possible. We double up the pawns. And then it says here, black accepts the double pawn, even so black obtains a playable position. So this is probably the best white can really get. So knight c3 and then pawn to f5 supporting. And here this is the playable position. And I agree, it is playable. We have some space on the king side, but we have some weaknesses over here. And yeah, this knight needs to hurry up and develop because we gotta watch out for these checks. That wouldn't be too fun. And you really like to play the white pieces here, but it's definitely playable for black as well. All right, so let's go back and let's look at maybe some other moves after d takes e4. Now our opponent can play, well, first, if they play bishop d7, let's just go over this simple stuff. Then d takes e4, the knight takes, but now bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, pawn takes. And now queen takes d4, and we emerge up in some material. So let's go back. And just to, I know you guys are probably wondering, well, what happens if, you know, this takes and blah, 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 blah. Well, this is the best line, just to play knight takes, because I can't capture here. So I don't want to retreat this knight because then the bishop captures and then the knight captures another piece. So instead, I have to capture something while protecting my knight. Okay. And then he inserts the check first, because if he doesn't, let's say he plays knight takes, then I can play e takes, and it does result in a very similar fashion. This is best for white, just inserting the check. This is the correct move order. So yeah, this calculation is good. But there's also bishop to g4, so trying to pin and develop and follow suit just like this bishop did. We're going to pin it to the queen here after h3. Looks like we have to play bishop takes f3, because if we play bishop h5, then g4 comes, and then it defeats the whole purpose of moving this, and boom, knight takes e4, and we just win again. So this is just a blunder. And if you play bishop takes f3, you're forcing the exchange, right? So you're the one exchanging, so that means you're going to be the one helping your opponent develop his pieces or her pieces. So this is not good either. Knight f6, pawn takes, queen takes, trying to liquidate again. And after pawn to c4, white should be able to obtain a really good position. So yeah, this is a really good game for Team White. All right, so guys, again, just to kind of recap, what you want to do is only one reason to exchange. There's plenty of reasons, but the one reason we learned today is we want to exchange to follow it up with a gain of tempo. And after we do that, we're going to gain some moves on the board that will help us implement our higher strategy. Or number two, let's say we get in a difficult situation, we want to liquidate everything off. That is fine as well. Just make sure that you're exchanging in the right way. All right, so I hope this helps. It's kind of a bit of a topic many people don't know about it. So try to use this to your advantage. Thanks, and see you next time.